You've been sitting on the edge of your bed for 20 minutes. Keys in hand, shoes on. The door is right there. And still, something in you is quietly negotiating with the idea of going outside. Like there's a vote happening inside your head, and the outcome was decided long before you sat down. Most people call this laziness. Your brain calls it something else entirely. Picture this. It's a Saturday morning. Not a bad one. There's light coming through the window. You slept fine. Somewhere out there, your phone has messages from people who actually want to see you. And your body just does not want to move. Not because it's tired, but because the mere thought of going somewhere, being seen, performing the version of yourself that exists outside these walls, feels like trying to push through invisible resistance, like walking through shallow water. You can do it, but it costs something. Here's what most people miss about this. That reluctance to leave isn't a personality flaw. It's a signal. Your nervous system has learned something so well it's almost invisible to you. That outside energy has a price. That being present in certain spaces requires a kind of emotional translation that leaves you depleted. And so your mind, which is actually very protective of you in its own complicated way, keeps finding reasons to stay. A little longer, a little safer, a little more contained. This isn't laziness. This is adaptation. Your body learned to calculate the cost of engagement long before you became conscious of doing it. And now, it's just very, very good at math. The first layer of this is something psychologists sometimes call cost-benefit calculation on a subconscious level. Before you're even aware of deciding, your nervous system has already weighed what leaving will require against what you have available right now. Not just physical energy, emotional energy, social energy. The energy it takes to be perceived, to respond, to maintain a presence that feels acceptable to the room. And if that number comes up short, if you're running on low emotional reserves, your system defaults to the safer option. Stay in, conserve, protect what little you have left. Here's the thing, though. Most people read this as you not caring, or as indifference to your own life. But inside, you're not indifferent. You're managing. You're protecting a version of yourself that you've been carefully assembling in private, one that feels real and safe and unperformed. And the idea of dismantling that just to show up somewhere and smile at people you have to explain yourself to, that's not nothing. That's actually a lot. But that's only part of it. The deeper layer is something around threshold sensitivity. Your nervous system acts like a smoke alarm set too sensitive. Small triggers that other people filter out. A slightly critical tone, an awkward silence, someone looking at you with an expression you can't quite read. These things register as full alerts in your body. Not because you're broken, but because your sensitivity to subtleties is unusually high. You're reading the room the way some people read fine print, and it never fully turns off. So when you imagine going out, your mind isn't just thinking about logistics. It's running a simulation, a whole scenario with emotional temperature checks built in. And if the math looks like it'll drain more than it replenishes, the signal your body sends is stay. Not because you want to miss out, but because you've learned, on some level, that overextension doesn't just cost energy, it costs you. It costs how you feel about yourself afterward. And this is the part most people miss. What looks like withdrawal is actually self-preservation in disguise. You're not avoiding the world because you hate it. You're protecting a tender internal environment, a place where you can think clearly, feel deeply, exist without constant translation. Your home isn't just where you live. It's where you get to be most fully yourself. And the world, for all its richness, doesn't always make space for that. It looks like one thing. Inside, it's something else. But here's where it gets more complicated. This pattern you're in, the staying in, the protecting, the threshold management, it's served you. It's kept you safe. It's given you time to develop a rich inner world and a certain depth of self-knowledge that many people who are constantly outward-facing never develop. That's real. That's valuable. And it's not nothing. But there is a shadow side to it. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because adaptation can tip into avoidance. And sometimes the protective mechanism that was built to shield you from depletion starts building walls so high you can't tell the difference between what you need and what you're afraid of. Between legitimate rest and a cage that feels like comfort. Between boundaries and barricades. The line is thin. And it matters that you know the difference between choosing solitude and fleeing from life. Both can look identical from the outside, but one leaves you feeling whole, and the other leaves you feeling fine. And there's a difference between fine and whole. Fine is surviving, whole is actually living. Here's the beautiful contradiction at the center of all this. You look detached to the people who don't know you, but you feel more deeply than most of them. Your withdrawal isn't emptiness. It's a crowded place you need to protect. You are not someone who lacks feeling. You are someone who feels so much that the world sometimes becomes too loud to inhabit. And that's a completely different thing. You're not someone who doesn't care. You're someone who cares so much that careless environments feel unbearable. And that sensitivity, the one that makes certain spaces feel like sandpaper on your skin, is not your weakness. It's the thing that makes you capable of depth, of loyalty, of understanding the unspoken things that most people miss entirely. So be careful with the narrative you've been given about yourself. The one that says you're supposed to want more, go more, be more external. Not everyone is built for that. And not everyone who seems like they're thriving out there is actually more alive than you are. Some of them are just louder. Some of them are just better at performing ease. And you don't have to mistake performance for peace. But do stay honest with yourself. When you're choosing solitude because it genuinely fills you, because you're writing, thinking, creating, being, that's one thing. When you're choosing solitude because you're afraid of what happens when you're around people, that's something to look at with gentleness. Not fear, not judgment, just honest, curious attention. Because you're not broken. You're just navigating something that was never supposed to be simple. The world will keep moving. People will keep calling. And your ability to sit with yourself in the quiet, to find contentment in your own company, to build an inner life that doesn't need external validation, that's a quiet superpower in a world that mostly celebrates the opposite. You are not the problem. You never were. You just needed someone to tell you that the way your mind works makes sense. And now you know it does. For the next one, do you feel like you need to be liked by everyone? Or are you more selective about who actually gets access to your real self? Let me know. I'll see you in the next one.